Hey guys, I'm Mark, and today I wanted to do a video on hanging baskets, specifically hanging basket care. Here at our nursery we grow thousands of hanging baskets, and we have a lot of customers come in with questions regarding how to take care of them. And the answer is not so simple. It depends a lot on several things. What's in the hanging basket, the size of the hanging basket, and then like where you put it at your house can be a big thing. So I want to go over some of the different kinds of hanging baskets with you and just kind of give a general overview of how to care for your hanging basket. In terms of how I'm going to construct this video, I'm going to start with some of the plants that are a little easier to take care of, some of the more tough as nails types of plants, and then I'm going to kind of migrate towards the ones that are a little bit more temperamental and that need a little bit more of a vigilant eye, if that makes sense. So to start, I want to show you this one. This is a Mandevilla hanging basket in a 10-inch pot. Hanging baskets come in a lot of different sizes. This is a 10-inch, and then we sell 12 inches, and then sometimes we'll carry a 14-inch or even larger than that. But this is a 10-inch Mandevilla. This plant is a tropical plant, and it's really, really tough. It likes the full sun. It likes a lot of the hot, humid summer that we have here in Maryland, that kind of environment. And you would think, by virtue of the place that it likes to be out in the hot sun and whatnot, that it will require a lot of water. Well, with this, it's not really so much the case. And the reason why that is because it's got a very waxy leaf on it, you can see. And when plants have a waxy leaf like that, typically they don't transpire as quickly as something like a calibrachoa or a petunia. And when I say transpiration, that's the process of the plant taking up water through its roots and then breathing it back out through its leaves. So if you have a waxy leaf like a Mandevilla or a Begonia or something, usually it slows that process down a little bit and it doesn't need water as frequently. So this Mandevilla, for example, we will, in our greenhouse, we'll water this about every 4 days. And when I go through all these different baskets, I want you to pay attention, or keep in mind, is a better way to put it, that all these baskets we keep under the same conditions in our greenhouse. That we don't have like a full shade area of our greenhouse or a full sun area. They're all the same amount of light. It's under a filtered roof. It's not really full sun, I guess you'd call it, and it's not really part shade at all either. But that kind of keeps things constant in terms of, so when I say that this needs water about every 4 days versus this needs water for us about every 4 days, well, that's not taking into account that at home, this would be out in the full sun, and this would be in more of a part sun environment. So when it's out in the full sun, it's probably going to require more water, and when it's in part shade, it's probably going to require a little less. So anyway, that's Mandevilla. I'm going to move on to, this is a high Malice Begonia, and so is this one. Again, a waxier leaf, sort of. It doesn't really transpire, it doesn't really breathe as quickly as some of the other stuff like I was talking about, so it's not going to pull up that much water to begin with. Again, this is in a 10-inch pot, same as this one. This one just has a flat edge on it. There's 3 begonias in here, 3 begonias in here. And so like I said, by nature of the plant itself, the waxier leaf doesn't pull up a lot of water, and then by virtue of it being in a shadier environment or like a filtered light environment would probably be best for this. A screen porch, your front porch, whatever you have, it's going to be a little less, it's not going to take as much abuse from the sun. So at home, you might water this maybe every 7 or 8 days in some cases. And as it gets bigger, it's going to require more water, obviously, and that's going to be the case with everything. So I'm going to move on now to a 12-inch basket. Now this is one of the 12-inch shade combinations that we do, and you can see it's got a high Malice Begonia in here. Same as these guys, but this was a yellow one. It's called Blitz. It's a very nice begonia. And there's also some New Guinea impatiens, some fuchsia, a little bit of coleus in the back, spider plant, some creeping jenny. All this stuff likes more of a filtered light. A couple things in here will take full sun, but they all will do well in a filtered light or a light sun environment. But by virtue of that, again, shadier spot, going to need less water. This is in a 12-inch pot. It's a larger soil mass, so it's going to hold on to the water a lot longer than a 10-inch pot will. And with that, I wanted to mention that, you know, if you're buying hanging baskets at your nursery, go for the 12-inch pot if you can. It's worth the extra bit of money. We hold on to all these plants throughout the whole summer and we keep an eye on them, and the ones that are in the 12-inch pots just seem to be a lot tougher. They got that little extra protection, a little more soil mass to hold on to water a little bit longer. It's just not as, the plants aren't as much abuse, I guess you'd say, by virtue of that. So this pot right here, for us, we'll water about every 3 days. And like I said, that's in a greenhouse, but at your house in a much more shadier environment, it may even be less than that. There's another example of one too. I just wanted to show that to you while I took these out just as examples, but this one's a little bit different. Different coleus in there, a couple different high Malice begonias in that one. There's a sword fern in there too. That's always a fun one. All right, so I'll hang that back up there. Now, now I want to get into something that's going to be a little bit more challenging, or something that likes a little bit more water. Behind me, these are one of our full sun combinations. So first of all, by being in full sun, it's going to want more water. The sun's pulling more, it's drying it out quicker. Think of it like a clothesline, right? If you've got a clothesline out in the full sun versus one that's underneath a tree in the shade, your clothes are going to get a lot drier if they're out in the full sun. Same thing with this guy. But you got to pay attention to a couple things with these. Number one, how quickly they blow through water. Because this right here, something this size out in the full sun, you'd have to water just about every day. Assuming it's not cloudy, if it's bright full sun, just about every day, sometimes in a hot summer, twice a day. And one thing you got to really be careful about with all hanging baskets in general, when you water them, like this is something, for example, that'll dry out pretty quickly. Because number one, of all the things that are in it, the different types of species that demand a lot of water, Calibrachoa, Verbena, Lobularia, these are all really heavy water pigs, we call them. And that'll dry this out pretty quickly. And when that happens, the soil mass will actually shrink. This is a peat moss based soil mix that are in these, and pretty much any nursery that you buy a hanging basket from, it's going to be the same deal. When you have a peat moss based mix, what will happen is when it dries out, let me put this down or back or up. When that happens, the root mass will shrink away from the edges of the pot. So when you go to water it, you'll see that water's coming out the bottom of the pot, and you'll think, oh wow, it's got plenty of water, it's coming out the bottom. Well, that's not really the case. What's actually is happening is that really dry soil mass is floating up a little bit inside of the pot. The water just runs right down along the sides and straight out the bottom, and the plant's hardly getting anything at all. So if that happens, what we like to do is we always like to come back maybe an hour or two later, and we'll hit it again, because that first round, it only dampened the edges a little bit. It didn't soak up hardly anything, but it did prime the pot so that the second watering will get sucked in a little bit that much easier, if that makes sense. So that's a huge thing to pay attention to with these guys, whether you're in the shade or whether you're in the sun, is that shrinking effect inside the pot. Another thing, I guess, timing to water, like when you choose to actually water. When I say 3 days, don't just go out and water your plant every 3 days because it's been 3 days. Sometimes it doesn't need water. And if you're watering a hanging basket that does not need water, you can run into a lot of issues, namely root rot issues. And that'll finish the game for you pretty quickly if you get into that territory. So the way we check baskets for whether or not they need to be watered is we'll lift them up. We'll lift them up off the hook. I mean, I won't actually pick it up off like I just did. We just kind of lift them in place and we set them back down, and we know by the weight whether or not it needs water. Some people I hear a lot of people say that they reach up and they feel the inside of the pot with their finger. Well, we don't really like doing that because sometimes just when the soil inside the pot is cool, it feels like it's wet. So we recommend to people that they not do that. Really the best and only way to tell is by the weight. So if you're unfamiliar with how heavy it should feel, buy a hanging basket, get it home, let it dry out a little bit. You can let it start to wilt just a little bit and feel how heavy it is at that point. And you pick it up, you can gauge the weight, water it, make sure that the water actually, got sucked into the soil and didn't just, go around like I was just talking about. Make sure it's got a good, nice, thorough watering, and then pick it up again, and you'll see just the incredible difference in weight. I mean, this peat moss mix is like a sponge. It will soak up a lot of water. But you do want to generally go between dry and moist and dry and moist. I mean, it's nice to keep things on a cycle instead of just constantly looking for that ideal weight. Because you might say to yourself, well, that's in that mid-range between heavy and light. You want to let it get down to light every once in a while. Let it get down to a lighter weight. Let the roots dry out a little bit and then moisten them back up again. I mean, you don't want this thing to be drooping over, flagging we call it, really wilting a whole lot, but get it to the point where it's just about to do that. And the plants really seem to do better off with long-term with avoiding root issues and things like that. So these are our 12-inch pots. Well, here's another example. I brought them out, so I might as well show you. I have another 12-inch pot. This is a second planting, so it's not as mature as this one is. So it's a little smaller, but it's got some pretty cool things in it. It's a night sky petunia. This is a Serafina Heavenly Blue petunia. It's got a mini famous Neo Violet Ice Calibrachoa in there. Just made this one up for people that like blue. I like blue a lot. This is a blue verbena. This verbena is blues lavender with eye. That's a really nice one. So like I say, this will get bigger and this will get bigger. Eventually, in the end, in a 12-inch pot, these petunias and all are going to hang down about this far. They're going to keep going a ways. And depending on what your conditions are, they might even go longer than that. I noticed out west, when we went to Washington State, they had hanging baskets up about this high at one of the seafood restaurants we went to, and or walked by, and they had the petunias were going all the way down to the ground out there. I'd never seen anything like it. So for us, they'll get about this long. And when they do start getting pretty long, depending upon what your area is and how hot it is, you might want to cut them back a good bit. And you can do that. You can cut it right back up to here or even higher than that. And that's gonna drastically reduce the amount of water that particular basket needs, especially if it's in the heat of summer. You don't want a basket that's this long if it's in the hot summer, because you're just never gonna be able to keep up with it. Plus, long term, they get healthier and they go into the fall, into the cooler season, being much healthier when you trim them back and let them kind of go out for a second time. So that's the 12-inch pots. And then I did want to also mention some of these 10-inch baskets, because these are looking really nice right now. Again, this is a 10-inch hanging basket pot. Pretty similar to what's in here. There are no petunias in here. It's just Calibrachoa. We try to stay away from petunias in 10-inch baskets, just because they tend to get a little bit bigger and they demand a little bit more water than a Calibrachoa. But these straight Calibrachoa combinations are really nice. They, for us, go into the summer a little bit longer without having issues too. We've noticed they stay colorful that much longer. But all this is all well and good if you water, you pay attention to your conditions, but also one of the biggest things is feed. You got to feed your plants. A lot of people just put clear water on them and they last for a couple weeks, and if you want to do that, that's fine and well and good. But if you want it to last all season like it's supposed to, then you got to feed your plants. And what we do is we use a water-soluble fertilizer like Miracle-Gro. And water-soluble fertilizers are great because they make it all the way down throughout the entire root zone. So that fertilizer is really available to the plants right away, as opposed to something like a granular fertilizer that you put on the top, and it'll take that much longer for it to kind of dissipate and sink down. Granular fertilizer is not bad. They kind of have their purpose. I like to use them a little bit more with like house plants or some of like the larger trees that we have, like lemon trees and things like that are in a pot for a long time. This is an annual plant. It's growing really fast. It wants its nutrition right away. So, so water-based fertilizers or water-soluble fertilizers, excuse me, are really good for that. As far as how we do it, we don't do a liquid fertilizer like once a week, like most people would do, or even like they say on most instructions. What we actually do is we call it fertigation water, where we have basically a constant supply of water-based fertilizer going through our hoses. And it's just at a light level. It's a very light feeding, but it's all the time. And I guess every once in a while, I will say, we will flush the pots out with clear water, with just regular clear water, because the salts will eventually build up over time in the pot. So that is something you want to kind of do every once in a while, just give a good flush of clean water of regular water just to clean all that out. But if I had to say the best way to take care of a hanging basket would be pretty much, I'd say 8 times out of 10 waterings, use a very mild fertilizer in your water at a lower rate and just keep it consistent, and they're gonna thank you for it. So anyway, that's my video about hanging baskets and their care. I hope that maybe you learned something, and as always, I appreciate you watching, and thank you so much. I will see you next time.